Have you ever visited someone's home and left feeling drained, disrespected, or even unwelcome? As we age, choosing whose doors to knock on is more important than ever. Time is precious, and the people we surround ourselves with can either uplift us or pull us down. Some visits bring joy, good conversation, warm company, and a sense of belonging. But others? They can steal your peace, shake your dignity, and even harm your emotional well-being. Many older folks have learned this the hard way, and their wisdom teaches us a crucial lesson. Not every invitation is worth accepting. So today, we're diving into 5 types of people whose homes you should think twice about visiting, no matter how much free time you have. Let's get into it. 1. The constant complainer. We all know someone who never has anything good to say. Every conversation with them is filled with complaints about the weather, their health, the government, their neighbors, or even the food on their plate. It's exhausting, isn't it? When you visit their home, you might sit down expecting a friendly chat, but instead you're bombarded with negativity. Before you know it, you're nodding along to endless rants, and by the time you leave, you feel mentally drained. Why avoid visiting their home? Because negativity is contagious. The more time you spend around constant complainers, the more you start absorbing their pessimism. You might walk in feeling perfectly fine, but leave with a heavier heart, as if the weight of their problems has been placed onto your shoulders. Over time, this can impact your own mindset, making you see the world through a darker lens. And at this stage in life, why spend your precious time in an environment that only brings you down? Take the story of Mr. Benson, a retired teacher in his late 70s. Every Sunday, he would visit an old friend from his working days. But week after week, he noticed a pattern. No matter how good the day was, his friend would find something to complain about. The news was always bad, the economy was always failing, and life was always getting worse. At first, Mr. Benson listened patiently, offering words of encouragement. But as time went on, he realized something. He always left those visits feeling worse than when he arrived. His mood dropped, his energy drained, and he even started feeling anxious about things that had never worried him before. One day, Mr. Benson made a decision. He started limiting his visits. Instead, he chose to spend more time with people who lifted him up, shared positive stories, and made him laugh. And you know what happened? His outlook on life changed. He felt lighter, happier, and more at peace. He realized that he didn't have to carry someone else's negativity just because they had chosen to hold on to it. The lesson here is simple. Spend your time with those who bring you peace, not those who drain it from you. 2. The one who treats you like a burden. Have you ever visited someone's home and felt like you were unwanted? Maybe they sighed when they opened the door, barely made eye contact, or kept checking their watch as if they were waiting for you to leave. Even worse, perhaps they made offhanded comments like, "Oh, you're here again?" Or, "I've been so busy I barely have time for myself." Whether they say it outright or make you feel it through their actions, the message is clear. Your presence is an inconvenience to them. Why avoid visiting their home? Because no one deserves to feel like a burden, especially not in their later years. As we age, we should be surrounded by people who value us, not those who tolerate us out of obligation. Spending time in a place where you feel unwelcome slowly chips away at your self-worth. It can make you question whether you should reach out to others, and over time, it might even lead to isolation. But the truth is, the problem isn't you, it's them. And if someone can't appreciate your company, then they don't deserve it. Take the story of Mrs. Lane, a kind-hearted 75-year-old widow. She loved visiting her nephew and his family, bringing homemade treats and sharing stories from the past. But over time, she started noticing subtle changes. When she arrived, her nephew barely looked up from his phone. His wife would sigh and say, "We're just so busy these days." The children stayed in their rooms, uninterested in her presence. And worst of all, whenever she spoke, her nephew would glance at the clock as if waiting for the right moment to end the visit. At first, Mrs. Lane tried to brush it off. She told herself they were just busy, that they still cared about her deep down. But one day, as she sat alone in their living room while they scrolled through their phones, she had a realization. She deserved better. She left early that day and decided not to visit as often. Instead, she started spending time with old friends, joining a community group, and connecting with people who truly enjoyed her company. And you know what? She felt happier, lighter, and more valued. The lesson here is simple. Go where you are celebrated, not where you are merely tolerated. If someone makes you feel like a burden, stop knocking on their door. There are people out there who will cherish your presence. Find them instead. 3. The gossip monger. There's nothing wrong with a little storytelling, but some people take it too far. You know the type? Always whispering about others, always eager to share someone else's personal business. They welcome you into their home with warm smiles and juicy stories, making you feel like you're part of their inner circle. But what happens when you walk out that door? Chances are, you become the next topic of discussion. Why avoid visiting their home? Because gossip is dangerous. It might seem harmless at first, just casual conversation over tea, but being around constant gossip can damage your reputation without you even realizing it. When someone freely talks about others behind their backs, you can be sure they're doing the same to you. Worse yet, getting caught up in gossip can bring unnecessary drama into your life, misunderstandings, hurt feelings, and even broken relationships. At this stage in life, peace is far more valuable than pointless chatter. Take the story of Ms. Evelyn, a kind-hearted 72-year-old. She had an old friend, Martha, whom she had known for years. Whenever Evelyn visited, Martha would excitedly share the latest news about their mutual friends, who was having family troubles, who was struggling financially, and even who had been to the doctor recently. Evelyn always listened politely, but never shared much about herself. One day, Evelyn mentioned in passing that she was thinking of selling her home and moving closer to her daughter. She didn't think much of it until a few days later when she started getting phone calls from neighbors and even distant relatives, all asking why she was desperate to leave and whether she was having money troubles. Confused, Evelyn traced it back to Martha. A simple conversation had been twisted and exaggerated until it no longer resembled the truth. That was the day Evelyn decided never to visit Martha's home again. The lesson here is clear. If someone is always talking about others, they will talk about you too. Avoid the gossip monger's home and protect your peace, your privacy, and your reputation. Some conversations just aren't worth having. 4. The always borrower, never repayer. There's nothing wrong with helping a friend in need. After all, kindness and generosity are part of what makes us human. But what happens when someone only calls or invites you over when they need something? Maybe they ask for a little money, a ride to the store, or a favor just this once. But somehow, it's never just once. And when it's time for them to return the kindness, they're nowhere to be found. Why avoid visiting their home? Because one-sided relationships are draining. Some people don't value you as a friend. They see you as a resource. And if you're not careful, You'll find yourself giving and giving while getting nothing in return. Your time, your money, your energy. These are valuable. And if someone is constantly taking from you without ever giving back, it's time to reconsider that relationship. Take the story of Mr. Harris, a generous 78-year-old man. He had a longtime friend, Joe, who always seemed to be in a tough spot. One day, Joe needed a little money to cover a bill. Mr. Harris, being kind-hearted, gave it to him without hesitation. Joe promised to pay him back next month. But when next month came, Joe had another excuse, then another. Over time, the pattern became clear. Joe would only call when he needed something, and Mr. Harris never saw a penny returned. At first, Mr. Harris tried to be patient, but deep down, he felt used. One day, when Joe invited him over, Mr. Harris paused and asked himself, "If I had nothing to give, would he still want me around?" That was when he made a decision. No more lending, no more visits. Instead, he started spending time with people who truly appreciated his company, not just his generosity. And to his surprise, his life felt lighter and far less stressful. The lesson here is simple. Friendship should never feel like a debt. If someone only calls when they need something, it's time to stop answering. You deserve relationships built on mutual respect, not endless requests. 5. The toxic family member. They say family is everything, but the truth is, not all family members bring love and warmth into your life. Some relatives drain your energy, criticize your every move, or make you feel small every time you visit. You leave their home feeling worse than when you arrived, questioning yourself, your worth, and even your own memories. The harsh truth? Just because someone is family doesn't mean they are good for your mental health. Why avoid visiting their home? Because toxic family members often believe they can say or do anything without consequences, simply because you share blood. They might belittle your choices, bring up past mistakes, or make hurtful comments disguised as jokes. And because they're family, you might feel obligated to endure it. But ask yourself this: would you tolerate this behavior from a stranger? If the answer is no, then why should you accept it from family? Take the story of Mrs. Carter, an 82-year-old woman with a sharp mind and a kind heart. She often visited her younger sister, who was never short on cruel remarks. Each visit was the same. Her sister would scoff at her outfit, laugh at her hobbies, and remind her how she had wasted her life by making certain choices. At first, Mrs. Carter tried to brush it off, telling herself, "That's just how she is." But deep down, every visit chipped away at her happiness. One day, after another exhausting afternoon of insults, Mrs. Carter had an epiphany. She didn't have to keep doing this. She wasn't a child being forced to endure family gatherings. She had the power to choose who she spent her time with. That was the last time she visited. Instead, she focused on relationships that made her feel respected and valued, and for the first time in years, she felt truly free. The lesson here is clear. You don't owe anyone access to your peace, not even family. If visiting someone always leaves you feeling hurt, anxious, or unworthy, it's okay to walk away. Protect your heart, your mind, and your happiness. You deserve it. Conclusion. As we grow older, the people we surround ourselves with matter more than ever. Some visits bring warmth, laughter, and genuine connection, while others drain our energy and steal our peace. Life is too short to spend time in places where we feel unwelcome, unappreciated, or used. You deserve relationships that uplift you, not ones that bring you down. Now, I want to hear from you. If you agree that protecting your peace is important, comment 9 below. But if you think these warnings don't apply to you, comment 0. I'd love to know your thoughts. Thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear this message. Take care, stay happy, and surround yourself with people who truly value you. See you in the next video.